Stick. No, it's already there. Is it playing? No. Yeah, because we never did. Yeah, I did. I pulled them over. And if you got lines across there, that means that they can go across.
Yeah, no sound over here.
Hold on a sec.
Okay.
We're trying to get everything together here.
Alright.
Okay, right click and play it from your. Yeah, right click and play. We're gonna play it from
The views and opinions expressed on this radio program are not those of its owners, advertisers, or sponsors. Everybody joining this melody. That's the only way we're gonna be. Everybody singing this sweet praise. Sing this melody till it gets into the well, I've been talking to you. The Christian and the Hebrew. Anything to do with got to unite, or else we are through. Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you, and welcome to the S.O.S radio program, Saving Ourselves, by uniting amongst ourselves and accepting the responsibility to build our communities. Saving Ourselves is presented by the Mid-South representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, and the believing community of Muhammad Mosque number 55, located at 873 Vance Avenue here in the city of Memphis. I am your host, Brother Andre Muhammad, and for today's program, we will continue highlights from our 2019 Sadie State Convention, and we will deal with what's happening in the recent news. You can call in to be a part of today's program if you so desire by calling 901-452-3094. Again, it's 901-452-3094. You can also join us via Facebook Live, or you can track that if you can. But you can definitely join us via YouTube live streaming by going to youtube.com and typing in WMQM 1600 AM. And once you get to 1600 AM, you will go to where it says S.O.S. Live. And you can click on it, and you can watch us streaming live on YouTube. You can also join us via Facebook Live. I'm about to come up on Facebook Live for the audience so you can see and hear us. And you can also join us via the TuneIn application on your smartphone with the TuneIn Radio app. Just go to the TuneIn application, type in AM 1600 or WMQM. And when the logo appears, you just click on it and you can hear us live on your smartphone from wherever you are. Okay, we've opened up and we'll be right back after these commercial messages. What's your source for truth in news reporting? Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced? Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. For weekly home delivery or online digital edition, log on to www.finalcall.com or call us, area code 901-286-5034.
Lost sound.
Would this be
What's your source for truth in news reporting? Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced? Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. For weekly home delivery or online digital edition, log on to www.finalcall.com or call us, area code 901-286-5034. And we're back live here at the S.O.S. radio program. We're having a few difficulties trying to get our commercials played here, but we'll be on top of it. Just give us a little time. We're having a few technical difficulties, maybe something that I am doing. But as we said in last night's broadcast, this is a new setup for us. And as we learn to navigate the controls here and get accustomed to the quirks that we have to deal with, we'll be right on top of it. Once again, this is the S.O.S. radio program. I am your host, Brother Andre Muhammad. We certainly thank you all for tuning in with us tonight. I also have with us our co-hosts, Brother Kenneth X, and of course, Student Minister Brother Rodney Muhammad. And assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Walaikum salam, Brother Andre.
Let me go ahead and open properly in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We bear witness to the oneness of God, regardless of the land label or language one would choose to use or apply. We, as Muslims, do not argue over the names by which the Supreme Divine Being is known. We know and understand as spiritually mature people that God is known by names other than Allah, and people of other faith communities know Him by names different than the one that we know. That is simply because God has made Himself known according to the language and culture of the people among whom He raised His prophets, messengers, and warners. We bear witness to the oneness of all of the prophets of Almighty God and the messages that were revealed through them to the whole of humanity. And we greet you with the greeting words of peace in the language of all of the prophets. They said, Assalamu alaikum. Those words mean, may peace be unto you. Welcome to another edition of the S.O.S. radio program. And, of course, we're going to continue. Black History Month is certainly not over with yet. And there are a number of things that we plan to deal with. And as I told the brothers earlier, Brother Derek says we're looking very good on YouTube. Brother. They've tuned in. And I would ask, brother, if you would be so kind as to direct the audience to the YouTube channel that they can tune in and see us live. And I'm fixing to go on Facebook Live and direct those that may be on SOS Live on our Facebook feed and send them over to the YouTube live stream that they may tune in and see us live on YouTube. And let's see, yeah, I'm up now on Facebook Live for the audience. And if you're on Facebook Live, just go to youtube.com. And I hear something in there. Y'all got something playing in there? Okay, well, good. I know there's some real sensitive microphones in there, so whatever's playing in here, I'm hearing myself twice. But okay. Like I said, we're getting accustomed to the new setup, but we got a crash course in it yesterday. And I'm here at the controls trying to make things happen. My brother Shadrach just logged on, and Brother Kevin X, Brother Kevin and Brother Shadrach, if you really want to see and hear everything, you brothers should go over to YouTube, and in the search field on YouTube, type in WMQM, then 1600, then AM. And once you do that, you should see a FW Roberts Broadcasting logo. Click on that. And once you click on that logo, you can see the live stream. We are streaming live, SOS. You will see Student Minister Rodney Muhammad and Brother Kenneth X, Student Minister Kenneth X, and myself. I will be in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. And for those that are on the YouTube live streaming, you can actually comment. There is a chat section of the YouTube live that you can go to and post your comments. Let me see who's on here, if anybody is on yet. Okay. Bang. Yes, we got somebody on, Brother Obasi. Walaikum salam, sir. Thank you for tuning in, brother. And he said he said I favor the backdrop.
Yes, sir.
Brother Obasi is on. Sister Tanya is on. Good evening, fam. What's going on, Sister Tanya? And as you can see on the screen, it's got SOS Live. I'm going to put our little hashtags on here. Muhammad Mas 55 and NOI. And, of course, build our communities. Those are our hashtags. Once again, Brother Stubbs is on. Brother Gerald is on. Brother Kevin is on Facebook Live. Brother Shadrach, my brother, is on. Ernest on. Thank you for tuning in. Big brother, he's on. But for those of you that are on Facebook Live to hear us in its entirety, you'll be able to hear me, but you won't hear the callers when they call in, if they call in tonight, and you won't be able to hear Brother Rodney and Brother Kenneth as they are on. So those that are on Facebook Live, go to, once again, youtube.com. And once you get to youtube.com, go into the search box and type in WMQM space 1600 1600 space AM. Once you type that in, you should see a logo at the very top. Should be the first logo. It should say FW Roberts Broadcasting. It has a yellow tower on it with a dark blue circle. Once you click on that, you should see SOS Live, and we are streaming live right now as we speak. So here we go, brothers. Let's get to it, man. We got our axioms to get to. I took that copy of the axioms from you. You gave it back to me, didn't you, Brother Kenneth?
Yes, sir, brother.
Well, that's all right. We'll pull them up real quick. And, of course, our axioms or our guiding principles that undergird or guide our conversation, we like to use those simply because it allows for us to think outside of the norm in terms of perspective and thinking that's been historically used by us to view the world, the lens that we have, normally used to look at the world through, okay, and to address topics, social issues. But the first axiom is from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He writes, and I quote, "He who prescribes the diameter of your knowledge dictates the circumference of your activity." And that is a very important guiding principle that we follow. He who teaches you what you know can dictate the circumference of the activity that you engage in based on what he taught you. So Christ comes to free us. And I'll leave that right there. I won't elaborate too far on that because I really want to get into the program this evening. The second axiom is from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as well, wherein he writes, quote, "A slave is one whose power and authority is ruled over by another, and whose sphere of freedom is limited according to the wishes of his master." As you can see, our experience here in the Americas has been such that whenever we have acted in such a way that displeases the dominant society, the white power construct, the social landscape, the political, the economic, whenever we act in a way, even when it is not offensive, especially when it's not offensive, when we decide to take a step for self or speak for self and point out the injustices, there's always someone who wants to be the thought police where we're concerned. So they exert their power and authority over us. And they dictate to us the activity that we engage in, but not only what we engage in, but how we are to engage in. So if you notice, no matter how we seek redress to the issues that we're confronted with in terms of seeking justice, Colin Kaepernick took a knee. That's not the right way. Dr. King boycotted. That wasn't the right way. No matter how or what measure we took to seek justice, it was not the right time, nor was it the right way. So as a young brother asked, I can't remember his name, but he's got a night program. He was talking to one of the conservative pundits, little female white. I can't remember her name, but he asked her, you know, all of the ways that we attempted to seek redress to our issues have not been right according to the conservative and the far right. You know, this is not the right way to say it, not the right way to do it. So what is the right way? Well, there is no right way in their mind. And the third and final axiom comes from Carter G. Woodson, wherein he writes in his book, Miseducation of the Negro, he writes, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to go here or yonder. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there's not a back door, he will cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. There you have our axioms that will guide us in our discussion. And once again, I see many are logging on to the Facebook Live feed. Those that are on the Facebook Live feed, you can stay there, but more likely you will only be able to hear me. And I also have in the studio with me Brother Rodney Muhammad and Brother Kenneth X. The three of us are here, and you won't be able to hear the callers as they call in. So you are welcome to either use the TuneIn radio app on your smartphone where you can hear everything, or better than that, you can go to YouTube.com. Go to YouTube, go in the search box, type in WMQM, space 1600, that's 1600, space capital A, capital M. So that's WMQM 1600 AM. And once you click enter, the search should yield an icon in the right of your screen or somewhere on your smartphone screen where it says F.W. Roberts Broadcasting. It's a circle. It's a dark blue circle with a yellow tower on it. And it should say AM 1600, WMQM AM 1600. Click on it, and once you click on it, the next thing on the screen, you should see us streaming live. And you can click on it, and you can see, you'll be able to see Brother Kenneth, Brother Rodney, and myself, and you will be able to hear everything. Also, the call-in number to be a part of tonight's program, you can give us a call at 901-452-3094. Again, that's 901-452-3094. My sister-in-law, Addie, says she got it. And my sister-in-law is on. Thank you for tuning in, big sis. And she said, you are a good teacher, my bro. Well, sis, I'm just sharing with the audience what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has shared with us. And we are giving it a perspective and a commentary that oftentimes you don't hear. And it makes for those kinds of conversations, dear brothers, that are uncomfortable for most. But these are the uncomfortable conversations that we have to have.
Yes, sir.
Because I know we're in trouble, man. Our community is suffering, and I know everybody, and I see some people, you know, they want to talk about, what's his name, a young brother that's in trouble, that's the actor for Empire, Jesse Smollett.
Yes, sir.
And the first thing I will say is, y'all hold fast now. He's been charged. Let the man have his day in court. And we've seen this play a lot of times. You know, look like they got a mountain of evidence. Yes, everything looked real, real bad. If you notice, we didn't say anything. We didn't make any commentary about when it happened, because we are taught in the Nation of Islam, and the Holy Quran teaches, when an unrighteous person brings you news, now
investigate.
Look carefully into it.
Yes, sir.
Lest you harm a person or harm somebody in ignorance and later feel sorry for what you did.
That's right.
So when the thing went out about him being assaulted, of course, it's under investigation. So you may want to wait until all of the facts comes in. And we waited here at the S.O.S. radio program. And unfortunately, according to the authorities, their facts suggest that he staged this. Well, okay. And they filed charges. And they got brother under arrest. And he's bailed out. He's paid his bail and is out. And he's waiting on his day in court. And according to the national news, they're going to aggressively defend against this. So I think we should wait and see how this thing plays out. And it seems like to me, Brother Kenneth, and I don't know, you brothers can give your perspective on this. It seems like to me, they're with the way they're covering it, they're politicizing it. Both parties, both sides are politicizing it, Democrat and Republican. And it's like they always do. They want to now make Jussie Smollett the poster child for crying fire in a crowded theater. When there's a history, and I got some history of people making accusations and later finding out that it's all false. But at this time, brothers, I'm going to give you brothers, I'm going to open the mic up for you all, man. I got them open, and they're live. And let you all greet the audience, and we'll get rolling, brothers. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Don't
go ahead, Brother Kenneth. Yeah. First, I want to thank Brother Andre and Brother Rodney for having me here. Welcoming me and making me feel right at home as a co-host. I also like to give all honor and praise to the one God who, regardless to land or language, time or territory, there has only been one God. And we believe that this one God is the originator of the heavens and the earth. You got me, brother?
Yeah, I just put the mic right down there. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There you go.
So we don't get caught up in names and labels, but we do give all honor and praise to the Creator. I also want to thank our Mid-South representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Student Minister Anthony Muhammad, for allowing me this platform and to serve in a greater capacity. And I want to say thank you, brother, and hopefully I won't disappoint you and with the trust that you have given me. Having said all of that, brother, again, when it happened, someone had asked me what I thought about it. I said, well, I just have to wait and see, because we're taught to just deal with actual facts.
That's correct. Actual facts.
Even though some were skeptical, I always say, the truth generally comes out. But I will say this, even though the brother hasn't had his day in court, and if it's true, the allegations, then he should be held accountable, as we all should be held accountable for our action. But it seems to me that the clamor about it is a little over the top. For example, once he was arrested and charged, immediately CNN plastered his mug shot on television. And I thought that was odd, because even though he's charged with what would probably be a low-level felony, filing a false police report, you can speak more to that, Brother Andre. However, Harvey Weinstein, a while back, who kicked off this Me Too movement, was charged, I want to say, between 20 and 40 counts of sexual assault and rape. You never saw Mr. Weinstein's mugshot on television.
No, you did.
Roger Stone is implicated into some serious charges, borderline treason. You haven't seen a mugshot of Mr. Stone.
Not a mugshot.
Paul Manafort's mugshot wasn't on TV. It was leaked from the Virginia jail, but CNN didn't plaster that. You didn't see Michael Cohen on his mugshot.
That's true, bro.
And he's charged with some high crimes. The point I'm making is, no matter how much money we get as a people, no matter how much prestige we get as a people, we still are not treated.
There you go.
With equality.
That's correct.
The justice system don't work the same for us. Okay. I'm listening to one reporter, and he was a brother, but he was a black man, and he was saying that he was so appalled with what happened that he don't want to listen to the brother's music. He don't want to watch him in any movies. If he saw him coming down the street, he wouldn't even greet him. He said what he did was so egregious that he has nothing for him. And I was saying, wow, he's a young man that you're saying is totally irredeemable if he's guilty of that charge, filing a false police report. I thought that was over the top. But there is historical precedence here in America, especially when they're dealing with the black community, Brother Rodney, that people have made false claims and charges against us and has caused way more, far greater consequences. Would you like to speak to that, brother?
We got a call or two, brother, just to let you all know. We got a Mr. Black Conservative just called in.
I'm interested in talking to a caller. How's everybody doing?
Yes, sir. Let me get him on live here. We have our brother on the line, Black Conservative.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
We're doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm better not deserve. You know, this young guy, he is in serious trouble. You know, for that stunt that he pulled. And CNN, that confused news network. You know, see how quickly they turned on him. First, he was their hero 3 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden they cut together and run with the fake news because they can never get it right. But he in serious trouble. This guy is he could be facing 5 to 10 years federal prison time.
Federal prison.
He's about the dumbest somebody. He about as stupid as he can be to pull that. I guess he didn't realize. Yeah, he's facing 5 to 10 years prison.
Brother Black Conservative, I don't think that that charge is a federal charge. And from what I've heard, they said it carried anywhere from 1 to 3 years worth of
for the false report. Yeah,
prison time.
No, they need to go back. Mail fraud. I'm talking about mail fraud.
You're talking about that charge.
Oh,
that's
a different
mail
charge.
fraud is punishable by 5 to 10 years in federal prison.
Yeah, yes, that is a federal offense if that's proven.
Yeah.
But I don't think one thing I think we need to pump our brakes on is just like it came to light, according to the authorities in Chicago, that they had enough. And in that circle, in the law enforcement community, it's called probable cause. It's clear, apparently, that they've had enough probable cause to charge him and arrest him for filing a false report. But at the end of the day, they still have to. He still has to have his day in court.
Right.
That's why he's arrested.
Their case.
He's given a bond, and he's paid his bond, and he's free until he has his day in court. And one thing I think we should be very, very careful of is coming to the conclusion that Mr. Smollett is guilty of what they have charged him with and has to have his day in court. And just like the one side of the aisle was saying, you know, people rush to judgment believing him. Well, yes, they did. Of course they did. But by the same token, let me say this, brother, and I'll certainly let you give your commentary. We should pump our brakes as it relates to him being guilty of what they charged the same token. So I don't think we should, on either side, rush to judgment.
Well, you know, you had the Democrat elite and the mainstream media. You know, they were quick to accept his story of being assaulted by 2 Trump supporters. And that's why they jumped on it. Oh boy, we got.
Well, of course they politicized it, and of course the opposite side is doing the same thing. They're politicizing it as well. So both parties are guilty of engaging and taking, you know, something that, in the normal sense, it's innocuous.
One thing is clear that we both can agree with, that we know. One thing is clear is that he lied.
Well,
that he was detective. His detective, he lied that his detective was white. And that.
Well, let me ask you this here, brother Conservative. Let me ask you this question: what do you think about the president weighing in on this particular case on Twitter?
Well, I haven't heard what he said. What did he say?
Oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering what your take
was. Trump has a winning hand.
He got a winning hand.
He has a winning hand.
Oh, okay. How so? What do you mean by that?
Trump has a winning hand. The number one with this false Russian dossier crap that was made up by the DOD and these other officials, he got a winning hand.
Well,
especially with this stuff that this guy pulled about the mega hat. he's definitely got to win again. Trump is a free agent. But
okay, well, we're not talking about Mr. Trump. And I mean, you know, Mr. Trump is going to do what Mr. Trump is going to do. And I do understand that our co-host did ask you what he thought about him.
Hold on.
Well,
what he said was on Twitter, he at Jussie Smollett, what about the Make America Great Again and the tens of millions of people you insulted with your racist and dangerous comments? That's what the president tweeted. What do you think about his weighing in on this particular issue? In this particular,
I got more tweet. I'm looking at my Twitter account. Let's see what I just hear what he said. Oh yeah, he said, "What about MAGA in the terms of million of people you insulted with your racist and dangerous comments?" Yeah, President Rice. You need to think about that.
Well, was it? Well, let me ask you this, brother conservative. Since you say Mr. Trump has a winning hand, and you so adamant about talking about it, was it dangerous for him to say the things that he said at his rallies when he said stuff like, you know, back in words, there was a time when he wouldn't make it out of here.
That's right.
And there was some of his
get him out of here and all of this.
Yeah, some of his supporters, you know, were saying next time we might have to kill him.
Right.
So,
murder.
No, this is no. Hold on now. No, don't come on me now. Let's be honest and let's be fair. So when it comes to his racist and dangerous comments, we're supposed to have tough skin.
Right.
But when he says something about Brother Smollett, now that's open season. See, that's the hypocrisy, Mr. Conservative, that we point out.
Y'all guys got to have a.
So we're supposed to just
humor.
So it's supposed to be funny when our lives are put in danger. So we're supposed to just chuckle and, you know, laugh at our lives are in danger.
Well, you notice some of the comments from the president at many of the campaign rallies that he had ended in people assaulting
just laugh it up.
No, he was just a candidate running for president at that time. He wasn't the president.
But you do know that in some cases that ended in people being assaulted.
Yeah, people were punched, and sheriff's deputies. Hold on, Mr. Conservative.
Come on, man.
Sheriff deputies were standing within arm's reach of the assailant of these brothers and sisters that were there. They were watching them being assaulted, and they did not act.
Mr. Trump deliberately encouraged people to assault people, and then even went as far as to say that he would pay for their legal fees.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And then told the officers, you know, you don't have to be so, you know, you can be rough with them when you put them in the car. Yes, he encouraged the police officers to be violent.
Okay, hold on, man.
See, that's sick, Mr. Conservative. Then you got to admit, man, that is some sick thinking. And for you, and hold on, and for you to try.
Hold on,
no, you hold on a second. I'm going to let you say your point, but hold on a second, sir. And for you to try to soften what Mr. Trump advocated of violence during his rallies, man, that's hypocrisy, Mr. Conservative. And that's a sick political, I mean, it's one thing to support a person, but wrong is wrong, man. At the end of the day.
If you're going to say that Smollett is wrong and that Trump is right in this instance, then you got to say that Trump was wrong.
Now,
and
here's what I want
the other people that he offended and those that were assaulted.
All right, I got it.
Okay, well, go ahead. Make your point, Mr. Conservative.
Okay, I got it. Okay, this is what I want to say about the president sarcasm, okay?
Oh, it's just sarcasm. Okay.
How do you know he's being sarcastic? How do you know?
It's not dangerous. It's just sarcastic.
How do you know when he's being sarcastic?
Hold on. This is what I want to say about it.
Let him talk.
Even if I say your point, you got a valid point. Okay, you got a valid point. You're right. But at the same token, that don't even come remotely close.
Oh.
Hold on. Listen.
That
don't even come remotely close to these investigators, these criminals who ought to be in jail for what they have done, working with the Obama intelligence agency and setting up this president, these crooked FBIs and Tony and McCain, they don't even come remotely close because these guys have perpetrated one of the biggest political hosts on the people of this country. Mueller is a cover-up, and all of them need to be locked up and in jail. They don't even come remotely close to Strauss and McKay and Coney and what they tried to do to President Trump and destroy this man.
Okay, now you turned the discussion now. So, but hey, I said I was going to let you make your point, and thank you for your call, brother, Black Conservative man. But hey, you got to admit, man, Mr. Trump was wrong in advocating violence in his.
I don't even think it's appropriate for
Okay.
That's to have a sense of humor.
Right. Okay.
I don't even think it's
getting punched in the face. I don't think I'm gonna have a sense of humor on that. But thank you for your call, my brother. God bless you. Have a good evening.
As I was saying, Brother Andre, I don't even think that it's appropriate for a sitting president to even make comments about things that go on domestically, such as what happened, in this Smollett case. Things need to play out, and the facts need to be presented, and weighed, and then a proper assessment of the fact, and then a judgment in this case needs to be made.
And if, brother, and I emphasize if.
Yes, sir.
If Mr. Smollett is guilty, then of course he needs to be held accountable. I mean, because I can understand from the perspective of law enforcement to put time and energy and man hours into investigating something that did not happen.
Absolutely, and even the reputation of the city of Chicago is at stake, and they don't want any bad publicity, any unnecessary, unwanted, negative publicity about the city. And, I mean, the crime in the city of Chicago is bad enough. Yeah, the violence that goes on in that city, I mean,
it's bad enough.
You don't need anything to contribute to what's already, a black eye, so to speak.
That's right. And in the same instance, like I said earlier, we're going to pump our brakes on it.
Oh, yeah.
Let the man have his day in court.
Hey, man, there's been many instances where there's been false charges landed against, countless black men, women, and children, throughout the many, many years, decades, and centuries of our sojourn here in America that, we have never, been properly compensated for those false charges being landed against us and the consequences of them and the destruction and the, ruining of lives. I mean,
so bad that they got something called the Innocence Project.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Where attorneys are working pro bono, and they are running across case after case after case, where these wicked prosecutors, some of them, have hid evidence, have falsified evidence. So black folks, I don't understand Mr. Conservative's mentality. I really don't. I mean, I know some of us got a name for it. It's a kind of I shouldn't say it, but just call a spade a spade. That's the way we thought like slaves. Massa was never wrong in the eyes of the slave. So you want to say that we got to have a sense of humor? When a man is advocating violence, people are getting punched in the face, and supporters of Mr. Trump are saying that next time we might have to kill him, but we're supposed to, sarcasm? See, that's the way a slave used to think, brother. I shouldn't say used to, because we just heard it a couple of seconds ago.
Yeah.
But brothers, I have something here. I decided to go find some things, because one of the things that, yes, sir.
I would just want to, before we move off of that point, and put it in context, because historically, and I'm not going back, the city of Chicago,
yes, sir,
has notoriously, under John Burge,
yes, I'm glad you
a lot of their police tactics have been under question. So when anything goes on in Chicago, it's always clouded. I think the new superintendent, from all intents and purposes, from what I've heard and seen, is trying to clean that up. So I understand his feeling, but you have to look at it on the flip side.
Of course.
It's been when John Burge was running Chicago, he had a secret site where he would beat confessions. And now you're seeing, like you said, through the Innocent Project out of the University of Northwestern University in Evanston, They're getting people off of death row in Illinois. They had to put a moratorium on executing people because they were finding so many cases where brothers was convicted on faulty police work and found out they were totally innocent. During the justice or else, many of those brothers came out.
They sure did.
With the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
One man did 30 years. A young man went in as a teenager. He did 28 years. You know, they even had a former policeman was shot 40-some times. Then they charged him with assault. I guess his body got in the way of the bullets.
Yeah.
But for whatever the case, those things happen habitually in Chicago. So, so we don't just openly give the police a pass.
No, sir.
And again, we have to wait until all of the facts come out. But people have a reason, based on historical precedent, to be skeptical of anything that comes out of that.
Brother, thank you so much, man. I forgot all about that, and that was in my mind. And I was going to stay on the point. We're going to stay on that point. But I was going to go to some historical instances.
Yes, sir.
Because one of the things that it appears that they're trying to do is politicize and use Smollett as the poster child now of this political witch hunt on the supporters, or at least that's how they're characterizing, trying to say that they're trying to characterize every Trump supporter as racist. And the proof and the evidence is in what Mr. Smollett has allegedly done. No, they do it all the time. Just like during the NFL when they had this rash of domestic assaults. Black football players assaulting their girlfriends and significant others. Ray Rice became the poster child for domestic assault in the NFL.
Yes, sir.
But the white athletes that had been doing the same thing, you heard not a peep of them in the media in terms of what they had done. And one that I can think of was Ben Roethlisberger. You didn't read anything in mainstream media about his abuse of women. And there are others, you know, but the men of color will always make the poster child for these things. But when you look at the history of this yelling fire in a crowded theater, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
You know, there are a lot of things in history, and I gotta back up real quick again, brother. Under John Burge, man, that was crazy, man. When I read about it, I think we carried the story in the final call, how it was unearthed, that brothers were being tortured, taken to secret locations, and confessions beaten out of them, and many lives were ruined, man. And those lives, the wreckage of those lives are still there. They have not been compensated. They have not been made whole. And people are still suffering as a result in the wake of his administration and rogue officers doing rogue mess. So you're right, brother. The people have a right, you know, to be apprehensive, to be suspicious, you know, and to hold the department in Chicago suspect because they have to prove themselves. But by the same token, brother, you know, my mind went to the Scottsboro boys.
Yes, sir. I was thinking about them today. All of that brought back a lot of historical things that has happened to us. We can go back to 55 with young Emmett Till. When there an allegation that he had did something, accosted a white woman, and you know at that time the penalty was death.
Yes, sir, brother.
You know, to whistle, that's death.
Whistle or assault a white woman back then, you're not gonna have a speedy trial. You probably won't make it out of the jail overnight because they're gonna bust into the jail.
Exactly.
Overpower well, they didn't necessarily really have to overpower.
No, because fear had been put into them ever since they were little babies.
Yes, sir.
And so when they said bring them out, there was no resistance.
There was no resistance.
You see, can you imagine 14 years old? Matter of fact, he was from Chicago.
Yeah, he was originally from Chicago.
Come down to Mississippi, and next thing you know, it's over with for allegedly doing something. You can look back at the Greenwood, Archer, and Pine community in Tulsa, what they call Black Wall Street.
Yes, sir.
How did that incident, what was the triggering event?
I got it right here.
Go ahead, brother. You got to pull it up.
It's still the incident in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I have some recent ones too, brother. But I have Rosewood, and I have Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was in 1890, a group of migrants fleeing from the hostile South. They settled in an all-black town called Langston. It was 80 miles outside of Tulsa. And Oklahoma wasn't yet even a state when black folks started to settle out there, according to this history. And its racial dynamics were not in stone. But it says it was home. It was a home to black lawyers, business owners, doctors. There was a doctor named A.C. Jackson, who was considered the most skilled black surgeon in America. And his net worth at that time was $100,000. I'm making these points because that was a thriving black community. But according to the history, it's still kind of suspect what really happened. But it says that they were envious of the town already. Exactly. The whites. Exactly. They were envious of the success because it was like a black Wall Street, brother. These people, black people had hotels, chandeliers hanging from them. They were doing very, very well, doing better than most white communities. So they were looking for a reason. And the spark was, according to this history, it was, they said, I'm going to read it. It says, it's not entirely clear what happened in the elevator of the Drexel building on May 30th of 1921. But one common narrative is that Roland accidentally tripped, young black brother, he accidentally tripped against the operator, which was a 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page, causing her to scream. So the story got, you know they add yeast to the story.
Oh, yeah, they put some heat on it.
Yeah, why did she scream? He assaulted her. And before the end of the day almost, the story was the brother had sexually assaulted the woman.
Exactly.
But nothing of the like happened. And that was the predicate for them to go and destroy. I mean, brother, let me read to you what was destroyed. Did I write that? Did I put that in here? I know I didn't even put it in there, brother. It was to the tune of over 1,000 homes were burned to the ground. 191 some odd businesses. I mean, it was all because, somebody yelled fire in a crowded theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. It's like something like 8 city blocks, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this community had their own airfield.
Yes.
All the businesses were independently owned because during that time, it was during the time of Jim Crow. Basically, it was legal segregation, so they were separate. Mm-hmm. And they were thriving because the dollar had to circulate in that community because they couldn't spend their money with anyone else. Now, see, these historical things that during Black History Month, we could look at them and get keys.
Yes, sir.
For us today. Here's a community that was off to their own. They were separate. Mm-hmm. And they spent their money with one another. Uh-huh. They were affluent. They put their children were going to colleges. Uh-huh. They were a self-sustained unit.
Doing
for self. I like that program. But as always, when you show that kind of economic acumen, there are those who don't like that.
Become envious.
Exactly.
Yes.
And look at what the consequences of that alleged incident was.
Yes.
It led to the destruction and the ruin of that community as a whole that has never been able to regain, what it once had and what it once was.
And lives, brother.
And the lives lost.
Yeah. So, these things, brother, many of our people are unaware of these histories. Mm-hmm. Your Tulsa, Oklahomas, and the Rosewood Massacre, which happened in 1923. A white woman screams, and they see her, she got bruises all over, and of course she says a black man did it. Only to find out no such a thing happened. But hundreds of lives lost, a city, a black town, massacred and destroyed,
gone,
and no restitution.
No restitution.
None whatsoever.
So no one's held accountable.
No one is held accountable for these. Now these are back in the Tulsa in the early 1900s as well as Rosewood. But this phenomenon is not specific and peculiar to that time.
Mm-hmm.
It's still happening today. I mean, just recently, brother. Let me give you something recent. Because I went and looked. Let me go to 1989 when Mr. Stewart. Y'all remember Charles Stewart?
Yes, sir.
And what was that? Baltimore? Was that Baltimore?
I think it was, brother.
Mm-hmm. He told police that his pregnant wife was shot by a black man. She died. Police eventually concluded that Stewart killed his own wife to collect $300,000 insurance funds. When he found out he was a suspect, he jumps off the bridge. That was in 1989 now. 1992, Jesse Anderson told police that 2 black men assaulted him and his wife, Barbara, in a restaurant parking lot on April the 21st of 92. He said the men stabbed his wife in the face and neck and stabbed him when he tried to defend her.
Right.
But prosecutors ultimately found out that he the one who stabbed his wife to death and stabbed himself in the chest.
Staged the crime, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I mean, so don't try to make Smollett the poster child for this crap. Y'all remember Amanda Knox?
Uh-oh, come on now.
Amanda Knox, well in Italy, bro.
Right.
She blamed a black man named Patrick Lumumba. Amanda Knox killed her roommate, slashed the girl's throat, and the woman was sexually assaulted. But here's the kicker about this. Don't you know that woman only did 3 years of time for that?
And we're mad about that.
Yeah. I mean, she murdered somebody and did 3 years. But because of political considerations, diplomatic considerations between America and Italy, Amanda Knox, female, white, American, and rich. At least that's what Mr. Lumumba said. He said that's why she didn't do so much time. Of course, we remember Miss Susan Smith.
Yes.
1995. She buckles her children, a 3-year-old, 14-month-old, strapped them into their car seats in a burgundy Mazda, drove the children down a ramp in Union, South Carolina, and drowned to death. Mm-hmm. She said a black man carjacked her.
That's right.
See, I mean, it's this presumption of guilt, but they are able, I mean, of course, she went to prison for it. But my point in doing this and highlighting these is that, you know, Mr. Smollett, now he's fixing to be made poster child for this kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I don't think is fair, especially in light of the fact of the history and the continued history. And I got another one, brother, one that's very recent. In 2016, that's just 3 years ago now.
Yes, sir.
2016, a female named, what's her name? Leah Ann Artman, Ann Sue Artman, a Michigan woman, said that 4 black men kidnapped, raped, and beat her for 2 days. Now, for falsely accusing them, she's going to only do 1 year in the county lockup. They're not going to even send her upstate. She pled guilty, and the time she has a rap sheet, according to this newspaper, according to what's the website? MLive. Says Miss Artman has a considerable rap sheet, but the judge did not send her to prison. She will do her year in the county jail. Now, the crime she committed calls for 3 to 4 years.
Yes, sir. The thing is, if that's the standard deal, then people wouldn't say anything about it. But we know that's not the case because, again, when they was talking about what's going on with Justice Smollett, they say normally there's something to get played out to probation. Uh-huh. But they're saying since it was all these power, all this extra attention, what I heard the superintendent said that they treated that case just like any other case. He didn't take officers away from the Violent Crimes Division. So we just want justice. We want justice applied equally, regardless of creed, class, or color.
That's right.
And that's all we're asking about. We're pointing those things out because it seems there's a big differentiation in how we're viewing this case, which again is a minor felony based on the chart. but you're asking for some severe punishment when we can look at other incidents and people have gotten slaps on the wrist. Again, what struck me was how they were portraying it. Again, politicized, because in the beginning when those who thought his story was true, and again, we don't know until he's found guilty, but they were jumping on it, the Democrats. Now that it's going the other way, here come the Republicans jumping on it. And I mean, they got enough things to worry about, but they want to just deal with this. Brother Rodney say, you all into the news cycle and domestic affairs, you need to be trying to balance this budget.
And it serves oftentimes as a major distraction,
right,
from what's really going on.
Well, I think that's what it is more so than anything, Brother Andre. You have several things going on across the country and on foreign soil that really need the attention of the American public, and most definitely the Trump administration. And, I think that this case is just something to distract people from many of the things that's really going on. I mean, here you have a Coast Guard lieutenant that was planning a terrorist attack.
Yeah, I got that story too, brother.
Yeah, and he had a list, according to reports, of several top Democratic officials, politicians, as well as journalists on his list,
yes, sir,
to be targeted. This man had over 15 firearms and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition.
I'm looking at the picture of the weapons cache that they confiscated, and he had drugs too.
And they literally are underreporting this particular case. I think that warrants more media attention than this Smollett situation.
Of course. So now, a false report by a movie star has trumped terrorism.
Right. Exactly.
I like play on words.
So, I mean, terrorism has been the big boogeyman.
That's right.
For quite some time.
And nobody is hurt in the Smollett case. I mean, with the exception of people, spending man hours and city resources to investigate.
I think they got paid, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they got paid. I mean, they not complaining about investigating because they doing what they get paid to do. But, nobody is hurt outside of Smollett himself.
Right.
His career is probably over with if he's found guilty. But, I mean, nobody was harmed.
Correct.
Except him. But you got a person planning terrorism here domestically, planning on taking out politicians and media personalities. But, I mean, it's not a big deal. Even with the media, you would think that CNN, because certain people at CNN were targeted.
Right.
Or were on the list as potential targets to this individual.
That's a heck of a point, brother.
Yeah, they're not even talking about it on CNN. I watched the news before I came in for at least a couple of hours, and they maybe only touched on it briefly, maybe one time in the course of 2 or 3 hours.
They mentioned it in passing on the way to talking about Smollett.
Exactly.
That's the main story. So I think we'll be wise to let this play out, as you said, brother, with your background, because sometimes things look one way, and then there's a twist, and then we be like, so I think we ought to stay focused.
Yeah.
I don't know how long we got before break, but I wanted to read something.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, and we'll go to break after this, brother.
From the seminal work of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad called Message to the Black Man.
Yeah.
Because this is Black History Month, and we're wrapping it up.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think nobody knew the black man and woman better than the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
I agree.
I would say he's probably the father of black conscious thought.
He is the father of
whether
black
we
conscious
want
thought.
to agree with that. Many things that he authored, people took it in their particular branch or vein and ran with it and founded their organization. Many people would be surprised to know that the Black Panthers Party program was adopted from the Nation of Islam. But what I wanted to read was something he wrote back in 1965. And it's under the section, Understand Self. He says, there are some efforts to celebrate a so-called Negro History Week I'll stop right there because before it was Black History Month.
Yeah.
It was Negro History Week. That's
1 week?
1 week.
Then it was 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Then it was a month.
And some of my people will participate. The planning of that week to teach the slave a knowledge of his past is not complete, sufficient, or comprehensive enough to enable my people to learn the true knowledge of themselves.
That's right.
It is important that my people learn the true knowledge of self as it means their salvation.
Yes, sir.
We must become aware of the knowledge of self and the time in which we are living. You must know these things whether you agree that Elijah Muhammad is on time or out of time. If what I say is out of season, it goes for nothing.
That's right.
If I am on time or in season, then all I say will bear fruit.
And all that he has said. If you study the trajectory that this nation has taken from the time that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad began to teach, absent his teacher among us, you will see everything that he said has borne fruit. He said at a time when America's dollar was king that the dollar would fall. Mm-hmm. He said it in the 60s. I think around 63, 65. At least it appeared in print.
Yes, sir.
He had been teaching it prior. He wrote a book entitled The Fall of America.
Yes, sir.
And if you would check the vital signs of America, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote in his book, A Torchlight for America, which is still relevant, and I would advise you get that book as well. And if you check the vital signs of this nation, she's on her deathbed. So I agree 100%, my brother. But listen, we're going to take a quick break. I didn't get an opportunity. I think I got it right here now. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Get your locally made, freshly baked supreme bean pies from Bake the Bean Pie. Made from the best of ingredients, experience the golden brown flaky crust and pastry filling of the supreme bean pie from Bake the Bean Pie. Not only delicious, but also nutritious. The supreme bean pie from Bake the Bean Pie. Call in your order today, 901-210-8791. That's 901-210-8791. Bake the Bean Pie. The Urban Indulgence Bath and Body Boutique. At Urban Indulgence Handmade, we pride ourselves on offering quality skincare at affordable prices. Handmade with plant-based, skin-loving ingredients, our soaps and body butters give you luxurious lather and ultimate moisture. Experience the Urban Indulgence at 3314 Poplar Avenue, next to Poplar Plaza. Open Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Working things out.
What's your source for truth in news reports? Where do you turn for non-corporate driven news that's fair and balanced? Subscribe to the Final Call News, your #1 free and independent news source that delivers hard-hitting national and international news coverage of today's political, economic, and social issues. For weekly home delivery or online digital edition, log on to www.finalcall.com or call us, area code 901-286-5034.
And we're back live here at the S.O.S. radio program. Again, I am your host, Brother Andre Muhammad, along with my co-host, Brother Rodney Muhammad, and Brother Kenneth X. Brother Kenneth, you were making a point, brother, and it sounded like you had a little bit more to add to it before we went to break.
Yes, sir, Brother Andre. I thought about that quote because ever since the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave his address Sunday, monumental address, I might add, there's been a lot of chatter on social media coming from different groups, different organizations.
Yes, sir.
I try not to get into that kind of conversation, because I think we ought to have a forum where we can come together and discuss issues that affect us as the people without vitriol, without hatred. And even if we disagree, we can we don't have to be disagreeable with one another, because we all are suffering and we need to find a solution for our people. I thought about that because people are asking what kind of Muslim, what's the difference between this Islam, Farrakhan this, the Nation of Islam that, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad this, and we get into a whole lot of stuff that really does not matter. It's like this: whether you agree with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his principal helper, Minister Louis Farrakhan, or us, he says, whether you agree or not, it doesn't matter. If I am on time,
That's right.
if I'm in season,
What he
and
says,
then you're going to have to deal with it. And if I'm on time and in season, then what I say will bear fruit. And if I'm not on time or I'm not in season, I'm not correct, then it'll go for nothing. So let's look at what he said. Let's look at his program. Let's look at his vision. And then see, was the man on time?
Yeah.
We're talking a couple generations now, in the 60s, that he said what was going to happen. He said that unless you get a true knowledge of self, it is not complete or sufficient enough to allow us to escape what happened to us in that peculiar institution that slavery.
That's correct.
Is he correct?
Absolutely correct.
We still are in a relatively same condition. I mean, you can look at certain advancements. Let's look at it statistically.
Come on, brother.
What is the wealth gap? Has it closed? It's worse. It's increasing. What about the literacy rate?
Worse.
Infant mortality in our community.
Worse.
Unemployment percentages.
Worse.
I'm just saying what he's saying.
Mass incarceration. Worse.
All of these things, these are factors that affect us as a collective. Whether you are Christian, whether you are Muslim, whether you're agnostic, whether you don't believe in anything, whether you are from the north side, the south side, the west side, whether you are in Philadelphia, whether you are in Los Angeles, whether you are in Memphis, Chattanooga, we still suffer the same condition no matter where we are. So all I'm saying is we need to take a renewed look, leave our ego, leave our emotion, and just take a cool, calculated look at our program and position, and leave the rest to side. Our young men, in particular, I'm speaking about this for a reason, are dying out here in the street.
Languishing in prison.
You have more black men being murdered on the streets in America than you do in what?
Open combat.
In open combat. Think about that. Now, you'll sit back and say, well, they're killing themselves. Well, all people kill their own group because that's who they're around the most. I mean, let's stop it now. Black folks killing black. Generally, whites kill whites, Hispanics kill Hispanics, because that's the people you are around. But having said that, the condition and circumstances that facilitate, thank you, brother, lead us into this. When there's no hope, when there's a sense of desperation, when there's poverty, when people don't see a way out, and there's no redress for grievance, you don't have anybody to go to. The Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan said this produces insanity. Absolutely. And if we want to clinically diagnose these things, when it's happening in other demographics, you come up with a nice diagnosis like post-traumatic stress disorder. He lives in an environment where there's so much violence that it affects them. Well, what about the young Jimmy? What about Lakeisha? What kind of environment they live in? You understand? They say now if you have so much trauma generationally, it goes into your DNA.
That's epigenetics, brother. I actually have an article on it where a Jewish woman did the research. And if I get before the program is over, I may pull it up. But she said, brother, that she interviewed Holocaust survivors.
Yes, sir.
and they showed symptoms that were the exact like of those who suffered from after you go to war, what do they call it? PST.
Yeah.
They said, according to her research, this is a doctor studying epigenetics. According to her research, Holocaust survivors exhibited the same symptoms as war veterans from Vietnam.
Wow.
And she said that their offspring, and they are the offspring of Holocaust survivors, not actual Holocaust survivors, but they're the offspring of Holocaust survivors. So you mean to tell me they suffered, according to what the books write, 12 years? Is that about right, Brother Rodney? The Holocaust over a 12-year period?
I think it was 6 years.
Was it 6 or 12?
6,
somewhere in that window.
39 to 45.
39 to 1945.
Yes, sir.
So that's 6 years. Okay, what about 310 years of chattel slavery, and then another 110 years from Jim Crow, black codes, civil rights, all of these things? You mean to tell me there's no trauma?
My thing is, because the thing about mathematics, generally what you do on one side of the equation, you have to do it on the other side.
Yeah.
And
equal sign, man.
And what happens in other demographics, they get the benefit of the doubt, where we don't. If you read a book, I spoke about it when we first started the Black History Month, by Harriet Washington, called Medical Apartheid.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can see some of the things that were sanctioned now. These not no rogue scientists. These are doctors getting funding from the government to carry out some of the most horrendous experimentations, from sterilization. How many of us remember the Tuskegee experiment? Where they literally had men coming in and diagnosing them with syphilis, and then acting like they're treating them placebo, and trying to see how it was going to affect. And these men going out, getting with their wives or girlfriends, and then passing this on for generations. This went on for over 40 years.
Yes, sir.
And then all of a sudden they say, hey, that's wrong.
Oh, we're sorry.
You know, and I mean, how would you think about this? Sterilization. You mentioned, I think her name was Margaret Sanger. And she was saying that she had to elicit the help of the pastors to sell this program. And where they were sterilizing women, unbeknownst to them, they did this to not only black people, they did it to the Native American, the indigenous people.
And listen at her language, brother. She said that we don't want the Negroes to know that we want to exterminate them.
We want to exterminate them.
Wow. Exterminate. I mean, brother, look. I mean, these conversations, and let me back up real quick, Mike. You talk about having conversations and looking at the program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan, in the writings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, put the Muslim program before Congress.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Now, in terms of having conversations among our people, one of the problems, or one of the hurdles, as I see it, is many of our people, brother, want to take the position that the enemy takes, like the Jews just did recently. They stand back and hurl these names at the minister. They call him anti-Semitic. They call Mr. Hoffman a Holocaust denier, but they are not willing to sit down publicly and prove what they're saying. So likewise, they don't want many of them to come into the public and have a discussion over the program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because they're envious and they know that the track record of the Nation of Islam in terms of the work that we have done and continue to do amongst our people with little to no resources. Can you imagine, brother, if our prison reform ministry was properly funded? Can you imagine if the other programs of the Nation of Islam were properly funded by our people? If our people would take to heart what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is saying with Muhammad's economic blueprint, which he can get over with pennies coming from us.
Be painless.
Be painless. You're talking about $16.20 over a year. You can give that in one day. And if just 16 million wage earners would make that contribution, you're talking about $291 million.
Exactly. That's the kind of change you keep
in a year
in your console in your car.
Yeah.
35 cents a week, you can find that in your sofa at the house.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when it comes to those types of things, we have been indoctrinated not to see any value in ourselves. I mean, we can watch a commercial, and it is true when we see children in other countries famine and starving, malnourished, our hearts should go out to them, and we'll open up our wallets readily.
Mm-hmm.
But we can drive down in Orange Mound, New Chicago, in those areas, and we don't feel nothing.
Don't feel nothing.
You know,
the blight, the empty, abandoned houses, the abandoned properties, brother. We can make our communities a habitable place. I mean, we don't have to reinvent anything. Our communities, brother, are really, in truth, a reflection of our state of mind as a people.
Yes, our spiritual and moral condition.
Spiritual and moral condition. It's a reflection. And the sad part is, in all of those communities you just mentioned, Brother Kenny, there are several churches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in New Chicago, from Thomas Street on the west, all the way back to the interstate on the east, to Jackson Avenue on the south, and if you come all the way back north to the 101 connector, if you know that area, you can find a minimum of a dozen or maybe 24 churches within that, maybe a mile and a half, square mile, maybe 2, 3. I'm not sure. I'm guessing. But just within that square that I just laid out in terms of the street borders,
yes, sir,
you can find probably 24 churches, brother. But there's more blight in that area, man. I mean, it's mind-boggling, the level of blight.
But where there's adversity, excuse me, brothers, there's opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now you have that blight, you have dilapidated housing, you have lawns, and you have these empty parking lots. Suppose the mayor of Memphis, city and county, got together and allocated funding. Now, you need someone to go in and rehab those houses. Why not take youth, as the minister said, partner them with a master plumber, a master electrician, a master carpenter, and set up guilds where they could become apprentices and learn a trade. I think here in Tennessee, correct me if I'm wrong, the 2-year vocational school is free based on the lottery. Why not steer them that way? Why not set up landscaping, commercial cleaning, all of these things where they can not only work and learn a skill, but ultimately establish a business for themselves.
Right.
See, what happened to urban gardening? I mean, our people think Chick-fil-A is really an option. McDonald's. It is the food that we're eating that is killing us at such a rapid rate. You're seeing young people now with hypertension, high blood pressure because they're obesity. Yes, because they're eating that filthy food. We don't grow our own food. We got all those parking lots. You don't mean to tell me we can't urban garden, grow our food, and then sell the surplus? We get so much, we're going to have a warehouse that someone got to build, someone got to work there. Then we can start getting trucks, moving this produce up and down the line, going from one community to the next. See, that Black Wall Street, that Rosewood, all of those things, we can replicate that.
Yes,
right now. I saw a documentary, and I'll close on this, about Orange Mound, Tennessee. I actually thought it was a different place, but that's,
Orange Mound, Tennessee, baby.
Right. One of the oldest black communities in the United States. I mean, what's a model? And now they're subtly trying to let it go down because there is a universal gentrification plan going on. You look at Nashville, they're pricing the blacks about the city.
Yeah.
You look at Detroit, they let it go all the way down.
Yeah.
Now you got all these billion-dollar corporations and investors because they know that city sits right on the water. You see, that's prime real estate. Look at downtown Memphis.
Yep.
They got rid of all of those projects, and now guess what? They moved you up to Whitehead. They moved you to Hickory Hill.
Called the Hickory Hood now.
Yes, sir. Now they're constantly moving you further out east, and guess what? They're doubling back on your 6.
That's right.
And getting that prime real estate down there, pricing our people up out of the market.
Right,
See, we have to be wise. See, what we see is worthless and no good. Others can't wait to get in there and put their money there because they understand something valuable when they see it, and we don't.
Let me get this Facebook audience locked in on YouTube. Those of you that are on Facebook, make sure you log on to youtube.com, go into the search field and type in WMQM space 1600 space AM. And once the search populates, you should see an icon, a blue circle with a yellow tower and the words F.W. Roberts Broadcasting. Once you click on it, you'll see the live stream, myself, Brother Rodney, and Brother Kenneth. You'll see me in the upper left-hand box, but you'll see the bigger picture of Brother Kenneth and Brother Rodney. We're live here in the S.O.S. radio program, and we thank all of you for tuning in. Those of you on Facebook Live, Brother Rock Hughes, Sister Viola, and let me get over here to the other computer. See, man, now I got a lot more computers to run in here too, brothers. Let me see if anybody is, see, like there's a chat on the other side. Yes, sir. Brother Mark Muhammad is on. Brother said, beautiful set. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, beloved. Brother Al is on. Brother Roderick is on. Brother Anthony is on. Brother, who is that? Datrin is on. Sister Sonia. And, of course, Brother Obasi is on the YouTube live streaming feed. Thank all of you. And, of course, the Facebook Live audience, Sister Jill and others. And I think they're on both of them, Brother Sam. Brother Ilya Rashad is on. I mean, we got to get Brother Ilya and also Brother Dimitri on the program. And certainly, brother, now that we're on the new set, I want to give Student Minister Anthony Muhammad first dibs, man. I got to get him in the studio.
Yes, sir. So
I can just sit him over there, and I don't want to say nothing. We got to have another Ask Brother Minister broadcast at the SOS radio program for those that have questions. But, brother, I want to shift gears. It's 7:23 already.
7:23, big bro.
Because in the wake of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's lecture, as usual, the ADL, they chime in right away.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, they didn't waste no time this year, brother. They actually chimed in the day of.
Yes.
On the 17th.
Yes. And let me get a call-in number again. The call-in number is 901-452-3094. If you've been calling, brothers and sisters, somebody waving to me that I've been getting calls. I don't have anything but visual to let me know somebody's calling, and it's very small. So if I'm not looking at it, I got 2-3 computer screens that I have to monitor, and my Facebook Live feed to monitor. Not making excuses, but a brother got to get acclimated to all of this. So please forgive us if you were calling us and we did not answer. Because see, we can get so engrossed in the conversation, brother, that, I don't even look over at the phone. But as I was saying, the ADL, I'm looking at an article, anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan. There they go again. See, all they can do is call names.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan teams up with notorious Holocaust denier at Savior's Day 2019 conference.
Yes, sir.
Exactly what Shulamit Alani says that they do.
Uh-huh. It's a trick we use.
She says it's a trick. But one of the things I want to highlight, they said in this article, they wanted to say, or they did say, that Mr. Hoffman said, or speaking before a crowd of several thousand at the United Center, an unknown number on live stream, Farrakhan was preceded by Michael A. Hoffman, who suggested that ancient Jewish texts are equivalent to the teachings from the Church of Satan, because he talked about how there is a passage where in the Babylonian Talmud that Jesus is in hell boiling in excrement.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just a few months ago, a Sephardic chief rabbi in Israel referred to black people as monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And when they called him on it, his response was, I was only quoting the Talmud. So now the Jewish people are saying in this article that when the minister took the podium, said he unleashed a torrent of attacks on Jews, claiming that anti-black racism was started by Jewish rabbinical leaders in ancient times, and that Jewish racism towards Africans is ultimately responsible for the enslavement, colonization, dehumanization, and denial of self-determination to black people throughout history. Now, the question is that true or false? Well, wasn't it Dr. Brackman in his doctoral dissertation from 1977?
Yes, sir.
Well, he quoted that it was Jewish Talmudic scholars that fashioned the curse of Ham and applied it to black people, even though the Old Testament did not give any racial connotation to the passages where it talks about Ham looking upon the nakedness of his father Noah.
Yes, sir. That's the actual facts.
So if Mr. Brackman, who is Jewish, he said he got it from rabbinical scholars. He wrote his doctoral dissertation on it. He said that he was awarded by Jewish organizations for his scholarship.
That's right. He said in the dissertation that it was Jewish rabbinical scholars who first, introduced or read into the narrative that you find in the Bible.
That's right.
The Negro-phobic character, if you will. I'm not quoting it exact, but this is pretty much the gist of what he was saying in his dissertation.
Exactly what he said.
And, they're saying in this article, Brother Andre, that Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan based much of his mischaracterization of Judaism, which the minister was not even pointing to Judaism.
He was not pointing to Judaism.
He was pointing to the Talmud, which is
the Talmud,
a commentary of Jewish scholars that was produced, in and around the 5th century BC.
Yes, sir.
Of that period, and again, they know that our people are not familiar with the Talmud and its teaching. I mean, many Christian scholars are not even
have no idea
too interested in going and studying the Talmud and what it says. So they play on people's emotion, and they play on the fact that people are ignorant. That's and right. They don't know really the gist of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is even talking about. But, it's our responsibility to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put this information out so that our people can be adequately informed, so that they can make the right type of judgment with regards to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam and those of us who follow him.
Yes, and brother, I want to play what Mr. Hoffman said from beginning to end in context. Now, Mr. Hoffman is a Christian and a Talmudic scholar. He's a white man. Y'all heard that right, audience? He's a white man speaking at our national convention. So I want you to hear his words, and you tell me, is the article that the ADL putting out accurate? But take a listen at this, and we'll be right back.
Beloved brothers and sisters, it gives me great pleasure and an extreme honor to present to us today an ally and a spiritual man, a man who is a Talmudic scholar, a man who is a Christian historian, and he will share with us more of the playbook and his experience with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan over this Savior's Day weekend. Help us to welcome and receive to these microphones Mr. Michael Hoffman. I greet you today in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To the true Jews of all nations, I say Shalom and Braka Hatzlaka and Salam Alaikum. Thank you, Minister Farrakhan, for permitting me to speak at Savior's Day and for your courage and your vision. In February of 2018, the Research Department of the Nation of Islam, the scholars who are responsible for the magisterial revisionist history titled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, alerted me to a segment of Louis Farrakhan's Savior's Day speech concerning the Babylonian Talmud. In that speech, he made the controversial claim that the Talmud, which is the holiest book of Orthodox Judaic believers, contained the teaching that Jesus, the Lord and Savior of the estimated 2 billion Christians on earth, was in hell being perpetually boiled in excrement. This is a thing so foul that one encounters it in no other theology or creed on this planet unless it were to emanate from the Church of Satan. No other religion teaches anything approaching what the rabbis of the Talmud have so savagely and pornographically taught about the Messiah of Israel. I watched a clip from the video of Mr. Farrakhan's speech, and I was most affected by his words as he concluded part of his address. And this is what he said, and I quote, "This is what they say about your Jesus." It was then that the impact of those words struck me. Here was a Muslim leader who is derided and castigated and dragged through the mud by the corporate media, who was pointing out what prominent Christian leaders, such as Mr. Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham, with all his millions of followers and millions of dollars, has not dared to say. What Christian leader Joel Osteen, with millions of dollars and millions of followers, has not dared to say. What Mike Huckabee, Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell Jr., and Joel Beakey have not dared to say in public in all the world. What Mike Pence, the so-called evangelical Christian vice president of these United States, has not had the testicular fortitude to state openly in a public forum. Only Louis Farrakhan. Only Louis Farrakhan, a Muslim leader who is pilloried, libeled, disdained, and denigrated by these same so-called Christians, had the audacity to stand up to the powerful advocates of the Babylonian Talmud and broadcast to the world their disgrace and their shame. Disgrace and shame in blaspheming the holy name of Jesus Christ by placing him in a cauldron of boiling hot feces forever in what is known in Hebrew as Gina and in ancient Greek as Gehenna and what we know as hell. They order the women to repudiate Minister Farrakhan. But when will the followers of the Orthodox rabbis be asked to repudiate the Babylonian Talmud? This is the power of the truth for which they have no answer. What they have instead of the truth is the machinery of libel, by which they endeavor to destroy the reputation of whomever dares to speak the truth by stigmatizing us as anti-Semites or as haters. Let us never accept that designation. We are lovers, not haters. We are the lovers of the Judaic people. The name of Jew is a holy name with us. It means Judean. Salvation is of the Jews, the scriptures say. We love them because we are willing to speak the truth about the beliefs of Orthodox Judaism, and that is an act of love, not hate. The haters of the Jews are the ones who keep them enslaved to the Talmud. They are the haters, not us. The best friend of the Jews on this earth is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
There you have it. That's what Mr. Hoffman had to say live this past Sunday in Chicago, Illinois, at our 2019 Savior's Day convention. And the brother that introduced him is student minister Dimitri Muhammad. I want to play his excerpt as well, because his presentation is just as important. And I would urge the audience, go and listen to the message from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Interesting thing about it, brothers, is here's a man who is approaching 86 years of age, who stood for over 4 hours delivering a message. And I mean, excuse me, sorry, y'all, I got hiccups. And I mean, the message is absolutely powerful. And I would ask that when you go to noi.org, go to webcast, and watch again. You can fast forward through Charity and all of the other speakers if you want. I would say that you listen to it all, because the entire length of it is 5 hours and 22 minutes from beginning to end. But what the minister presented needs to be studied and examined, dear brothers and sisters, because while we are, and I know we talked about Mr. Smollett and all of these things, but we're doing it within the context of black history and to highlight some things. But while all of these distractions are going on, a man is among us, calling us in the way that the prophets of old have called us. But we are not in the time of prophets. And I'll say that and leave that right there. But meanwhile, the fiery serpents of which the scriptures speak, which is angry white America, they're busying themselves. Now here's a man that's openly planning a terrorist attack. You know, domestic terrorists. But American government got poor white people thinking there's some guys out in the sand going to spill over into the borders of America and cause some harm. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has already said, no foreign nation, no foreign nation will destroy America. America is a preserved area. So teaches the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. God himself is poised to destroy America if she does not change her course and change it quick. And we as black people, see, you don't want to come out, as the scripture says, come out of her, Babylon. All of your Christian scholars, especially Mr. Hagee, they agree that America is the fulfillment of Mystery Babylon. That's right. Now, this is Christian theology now. We agree with it. They say America is the fulfillment of Mystery Babylon. Well, if your book tells you to come out of her, what does it mean? Come out of her how? It don't mean leave and go back to Africa somewhere. But we have to come out of her mind, come out of her culture, come out of her economics, come out of her politics. In other words, people of goodwill, and this is not just for black people. Although it is addressed, God says, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins and of her plagues. So yeah, I just wanted to get that in, brother, that commentary in the wake of what Mr. Hoffman had to say. And there's another piece that I'm going to play and once we give some more commentary on it. And those of you that are listening, you want to call in and give your commentary and your thoughts on what we're saying with regard to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has said, what Mr. Hoffman has just said. You can call us at 901-452-3094. You know, and I know probably the predominance of the people, they want to talk about Mr. Smollett. Which is, I mean, fine. That's the hot news item, but we have to put it in context and in perspective because it serves more as a distraction than anything. Exactly. It serves more of a distraction than anything, brothers. So, to our listening audience, once again, of course, we thank you for tuning in. We are at about 19 minutes left in tonight's broadcast, and I'm gonna play this "Power at Last Forever" excerpt because it's important in the sense that this is still the objective. You know, brother, I read a scripture where it says, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. We're going to talk about that in coming broadcasts because that's talking about somebody. Mm-hmm. It's talking about the anointed and the prophets. Right. Not the ones of old, sir. But we're going to play this piece. I want you all to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and think of it in the context of what's happening right now.
Look at some of the names that they call me. I've been called divisive, a Hitler lover. They even went so far as to call me in the Jewish paper this week, the new Hitler. A hater, a Klan lover, a con man, a bigot. And then they topped it all off. They called me the devil himself. Mr. Koch said I should burn in hell. What do you think the aim and the purpose is of their using these kind of words? What is the purpose of such words being written by the press and spoken in the public by men and women of renown? The aim is to discredit a man by the use of false terms without any just basis. The aim is to create an environment of hostility around that man that will keep the people from hearing what he has to say. If I'm a hater, who wants to be involved in hate? If I'm a bigot, who wants to be involved in bigotry? If I'm an anti-Semite, see, they're trying to discredit the power of my message by calling me names that will undercut my magnetic attraction in my own people. Evidently, it's not working. Look, calling me those names is designed to undercut any support that you might want to give me. It is to alienate people from me who might desire to help me. Then it is designed to isolate me. And then, of course, destroy my influence among black people. And then ultimately, the aim is to murder me. That's the ultimate aim. Now, I want you all to reason with me. You won't hear me tonight call for killing anybody. But look, the idea of my being referred to as a Hitler is to plant in the minds of those who suffered from Hitler's mind and Hitler's work that we must never allow Hitler to come up again. So we must never allow this man, Farrakhan, to grow into power that he may do to us what Hitler did to us. Isn't that sisters, the germ of murder is already sown in the heart of Jews across this nation and across the world. And those who sympathize with Jews, they have a heart now filled with murder for Louis Farrakhan. So some person is going to think, as the scripture says, that they're doing God a favor and seek my death. Isn't that something? When I spoke in the forum in Los Angeles, 19,000 black people came out. The Jewish Defense League was outside chanting to kill Farrakhan. Kill Farrakhan. Yesterday on the news, we saw them asking the question, what do you want? We want Farrakhan. How do you want him? We want him dead. Now, you can't find one word in the text of my speeches that calls for death to Jews. But I am made to look like a total wicked man, and here are people calling for my death. Let me say to you, Mr. Press and Mr. Government of America, what do you think will happen to America if anything happens to me?
Well. The same is true today. They continue to call the minister names, and it's designed to produce a certain effect. But an element has been added, brothers, as we wind down. We got about 12 minutes left in tonight's broadcast. The Jewish lobby now has now put pressure on local, state, and federal government to legislate tyranny, to legislate the censure of anyone who will speak truth to power. In other words, brother, they're going to make speaking truth to power illegal by characterizing it as hate speech. Have you noticed that? See, that's the angle they're coming at. You know, they were talking about it today. Anybody who would speak like this, they're talking about it in the context of what Mr. Trump is saying. Mm-hmm. So, for us to tell the truth, they're going to characterize it as hate speech. And legislation has been being passed. Mm-hmm. They got legislation on in over 26 states right now, brother, already, making it illegal to give contracts to people who refuse to sign contracts that has language in it that they will not boycott Israel.
Yes, I saw that.
It's in 26 states.
26 states.
Right now.
That's right.
If you do business with the state, in the contract, there's language that says that during the contract with these states, that you will not boycott Israel.
That's right.
Now, I mean, look at the influence that a foreign power has.
You can't even choose who you
want
to spend your money with.
Right.
You know, your hard-earned money that you spend time and energy to get, you can't even determine for yourself that you want to divest or not spend your money with a foreign nation.
Now, wait a minute.
In America.
Yeah. Now, this is what I want you to think about, audience.
Wow.
Think about this. You mean to tell me that that kind of power and influence is being wielded by members from the Jewish community in government, whereby they can impress upon 26 of America's 50 states. Mm-hmm. That's over half. That's 51%. Over half of the states in this union to agree from local to state to legislation that dictates to the American wage earner where they can and can't spend their money and who they can't boycott. But you don't believe that members from this same community control media. So they can control government, but they can't control media. See, white America has been pointed in the direction, and not all of them. There are many whites in America that are aware of this. They're not fooled. Now, some of them don't handle it well. You know, some of them go off. You know, like this man that's planning this terrorist attack.
You know, the trip part about it, though, Brother Andre, is that, you know, Jewish interests, Jewish commentators, they would have us to believe that it is a trope or it's something of an allegory to say that Jews control media or Jews control finance or they control politics in America. However, by definition, control means the power to influence or direct people's behavior.
That's correct.
Well, if you can direct through policy that is enacted by a vote of a politician in a given state to disallow someone in the public sector to
say it, man.
Not boycott a foreign entity, a foreign power, then if there's not control, I don't know what is.
I don't know what is. Now, should all of these legislators and those who exerted their power and influence, should they not register as an agent of a foreign power?
Absolutely.
Like they tried to get the minister to do when he visited Libya?
Yes, sir.
And Brother Muammar Gaddafi was talking about giving America $2 billion towards the Black economic struggle. And they talking about the minister should register as a foreign agent. And while at the same time, many American businessmen were doing business in Libya. See, that's the sickness that's going on. And any step that we try to make to free ourselves as black people, brother, that's what anti-Semitism is.
What has to be
what Jews, some of them call it.
What has to be understood by our people that the minister is absolutely doing the work of the Messiah, because the Messiah's work is to break the yoke of Israel from off of the people's back.
Break the yoke of the synagogue of Satan.
And that's why his message is so important. A Savior is born for humanity.
For humanity.
No one need not perish.
Yes. And that is the title of the 2019 Savior's Day message that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivered in Chicago. A Savior is born for humanity. No one need perish. And see, people think that, you know, we just promoting the black man. Well, the message did begin specifically amongst blacks in America.
That's right.
Well, the same thing started with the ministry of Jesus in your Bible.
Right.
He said, "Go ye not in the way
of
the Gentiles or the Samaritans." He said, "Go ye to the lost house of Israel first." Well, that's a narrow ministry that excludes two specific people that Jesus mentioned.
That's right.
These are his instructions to his disciples. And then at a certain point in the gospel, Jesus says, "Go ye into all of the earth."
That's right.
So, of course, the mission of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad began specifically and peculiarly amongst black folks in America. Because as a doctor in an emergency room, when you're looking at patients and making an assessment of who needs to be treated first, well, if a man got a broke finger, and then you got a man over here with a gunshot wound to the head, who are you going to treat first?
Exactly.
So the condition of the house of Israel, we were dead.
The lost sheep of the house of Israel.
Lost sheep. Yeah, that's the distinction.
It has to be clear on who is being talked about here. It's a lost sheep in the house of Israel who have been made a possession of the house of Israel.
Thank you, brother.
Not that they are Israel.
That's correct. Thank you, Brother Rodney.
It's a difference now. It's a clear distinction.
Say that again, brother,
yes,
so
sir.
The audience will know.
There is a clear distinction that there is a lost sheep of the house of Israel. Of there is a preposition that shows ownership.
Come on, man.
Of the sheep.
Just like the children of Israel. The children who belong to Israel. And you got to bear witness. Jewish people respond to us as though we're their property.
That's right.
And this is why people like Mr. Saperstein, when he could call black leadership and in words effectively say, look, you Negroes didn't get permission from us to invite Minister Farrakhan to the commemoration of the March on Washington in 1963.
That's right.
Who do you think we are? We're pulling our funding.
Yeah, we're going to pull our funding.
And all of them bowed.
We're going to punish your children.
And the only one that showed some strength and stood up was our brother, Dr. Ben Chase.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are real, brothers and sisters, and you don't have to agree, like Brother Kenneth read from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Whether you agree or disagree, that takes nothing from the truth.
That's right.
Family, we're at the end of another program for the night, man. We be having so much fun, brother. Them little 2 hours go by so fast.
Quick.
Yes, sir. So praise is due to Allah. Thank you once again, Facebook Live audience, YouTube live streaming audience. Thank you all for tuning in. God willing, we'll be back next week. I think we're going to begin our series talking about Jesus, man. We got to get this Jesus.
Jesus saves, man.
Jesus saves. That's our Lord and Savior. We just got to put an identity to him.
That's right.
But until that time, we would ask that you would please subscribe to the Final Call newspaper. You can give us a call at 901-286-5034 for local delivery right to your door. Come and visit us at Muhammad Mosque, number 55, located at 873 Vance Avenue. I still have not yet got an definitive time frame in terms of when our construction will be finished. But for now, our men's class taking place Monday night at 7:30. We will be at Muhammad Mosque, number 55 at 873 Vance Avenue for our men-only FOI and processing class. That'll be Monday night at 7:30. Wednesday night, we will be at 1495 Brookhaven for our midweek study class and study group. Men and women are invited. 7:30 p.m. at the same location. Again, Friday night at 7:30 p.m. for our self-improvement study class. Both of those taking place at 1495 Brookhaven in South Haven, Mississippi. And our women's-only class will also be at that location Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for our MTT's GCC class, all taking place at our satellite location at 1495 Brookhaven in South Haven, Mississippi. Call our conflict resolution hotline. We have a hotline to call. If you want to have a mediator to solve some conflict, to prevent the loss of life, gunfire, and our brothers going to prison because they can't squash their beef, give us a call at 901-303-8961. Of course, if you are not in the immediate Memphis area this Sunday, we tentatively will be, not in the immediate area. I mean, if you are in the immediate area. If you're in Memphis Sunday, we are tentatively once again scheduled to be at 4599 Cottonwood at the McFarland Community Center for our Sunday meeting. It will take place from 12 noon to 2 p.m. From 12 noon to 2 p.m. tentatively. Also, you can catch us on Channel 17 on Comcast Monday nights, or Monday evenings, I should say, at 5:30 p.m. for the Self-Improvement Talk Show, hosted by Student Minister James Muhammad. You can catch us again Thursdays at 4 p.m. for the Final Call Hour, and again on Saturdays at 11 a.m. for New Woman, New Nation. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If you want to advertise with us, give us a call or an email at savingourselves19@yahoo.com. That's going to do it for us this evening. And we sign out, as we always sign on, with the greeting words of peace. Once again, hoping to see you next week at the same time. Assalamu alaikum.
Bill Lee, newly elected governor of Tennessee. Still hot. Got me yesterday.
Everybody join in this melody. That's the only way we're gonna be.
I'm the master of dance. I'd be the first one ever to win that thing without a partner, Producer Robert. And you'd be the first one. I'm just gifted, a natural, when it comes to the dance floor. Stay Smith here at SB Nation Radio and SBNationRadio.com.
Good job, brother. Good job. Man.
Enter to win a trip to watch Cactus League Baseball in Arizona. It's the SB Nation Radio Spring Training Getaway, presented by Talking Stick Resort. The winner will receive a 2-night stay at the luxurious 4-Diamond Talking Stick Resort in Scottsdale. 2 tickets to see the Cubs play the Rockies on March 23rd and the Brewers play the D-backs on March 24th at Salt River Fields, and a $500 Visa card. Head to springtraininggetaway.com and enter today. That's springtraininggetaway.com. The Power Hour with Jake Asman.
When it's this egregious, when a non-call